Nintendo just reported that their annual player base is 128 million players, which is actually slightly down from last year. And while this dip is very small in scope, it actually matters a lot when discussing the trajectory of Nintendo, because this is the first time in over 8 years that player growth has dropped. And this happened in the same year that their most hyped console ever finally hit the market, the Nintendo Switch 2. So will Nintendo be able to turn this around in 2026? Well, maybe, but only if adoption for the Switch 2 increases instead of decreases. And when you pair that with the fact that they actually missed their operating profit target and their net sales expectations for this past holiday quarter, the fact that software sales are lower than expected, and the fact that the lower cost Japanese Switch 2 model did a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to moving units in the last quarter of 2025, honestly, I'm not so sure. So today, let's dive into the latest Nintendo sales data and figure out just how well the Switch 2 is doing, and now that it finally broke 15 million units sold. But first, what's going on, guys? Cheers. Now, last week I actually predicted exactly what was going to happen when this Nintendo financial data came out, and it turns out I was right. I'm just going to play the clip. It's going to happen again like clockwork, and you guys are going to wonder, like, wow, how did Omniarch predict that, right? It's like, because they do this all the time. They did this even back on the original Switch. What we're going to see is these headlines: Switch 2 sold 17 million, and it's like, oh my god, it's so annoying. It's so annoying for those of us that actually look at the numbers. It's like, oh god, now we gotta deal with all the people that don't know what they're talking about. They know that that's not the entire truth. They know it's not the actual numbers, but it paints Nintendo in a good light. Now, I will say the only thing I was wrong about is that I actually didn't think they were going to give us these sell-through numbers. I genuinely thought they were just going to release the numbers that they shipped out, and that was going to be it. That was going to paint them in the best light, so they might as well do that. But we actually did get the Switch sell-through numbers, so I gotta give Nintendo credit. I did not think they were going to do this. Now, it does say that they are internal estimates, but you know what? Let's not split hairs here. Let's just give them credit and say congrats. You reached the number that everyone knew you were going to reach, and I'm just going to come out and say it, guys. If you are a hardcore Nintendo fan, this video, it's not for you. Don't do this to yourself. I want you guys to prioritize your mental health, and it's just not good to watch content that you know is just going to make you mad, okay? And I do genuinely mean that, because in this video we are going to be looking at nuanced data, and there's nothing that people on the internet hate more than nuance, okay? So if you bought the Switch 2 and you like it, great. I'm happy for you. I'm glad you enjoy it. But today I want to take a real actual close look at the financial report here, because I don't know about you guys, but fastest selling console ever is just, it's old at this point. We get it. Literally nobody said this console was going to fail. All we've been talking about on this channel is the trajectory of the console. The truth is that the headlines you might see when you're not in the Nintendo echo chamber are things like this that are reported by Bloomberg: Nintendo's profit disappoints while raising memory prices way. We got another report here: Nintendo holds guidance despite Q3 revenue miss, Switch 2 doubts. We've got another one: JP Morgan downgrades Best Buy stock on fears of Nintendo and Microsoft sales headwinds. The Nintendo echo chamber is just going to see this and say, yay, 17 million, even though we knew this number like 3 months ago. Like, this is nothing new. This is not anything interesting or worth talking about, considering everybody already knew this. Okay, so that being said, let's take a look at what Bloomberg actually reported here. Nintendo reported a smaller than expected quarterly profit gain despite solid sales of the Switch 2, fueling concern about the rising cost of memory chips. Profit rose a smaller than expected 23% to 155.2 billion yen in the December quarter, compared with the average of analyst estimates of 180.7 billion yen. Sales came in to 806.3 billion yen versus analyst estimated 815 billion. The company kept its full year guidance of 2.25 trillion yen in revenue and 370 billion yen in operating profit, as well as Switch 2 unit sales of 19 million. Nintendo sold 17.37 million Switch 2 units through December. Now, it's important to know here, as I said before, this is the number of units sold to actual customers. The 17.37 million unit number is the number of consoles Nintendo sold to retailers, so don't get confused there. I know a lot of the headlines just go for the bigger number because it's just, I mean, of course they do. After scoring a record-setting debut for the Switch 2 last year, the Kyoto-based company now faces surging memory prices that are threatening the console's already razor-thin margins. We actually learned this a couple of weeks ago. The margins on the Switch 2 are actually more thin than the margins for the original Switch, which is why over the last couple of weeks we've actually talked about on the channel that Nintendo's sort sort of between a rock and a hard place here when it comes to the price of the Switch 2, because as we'll take a look at later in the video, the $50 price reduction on the Switch 2 throughout December did a lot of heavy lifting in the Americas when it comes to them actually moving units, and thank God for the retailers for that. It really did help them out a ton when it comes to moving units. But with the cost of manufacturing the Switch 2 likely going up in 2026 as a result of the AI data center boom, Nintendo will inevitably have to renegotiate contracts with these chip companies, and if it costs them more to make the console and they already have razor thin margins, are they going to pass that cost on to the consumer, or are they going to just eat the loss? And that's not going to look good for their financial reports later down the line. So we'll have to wait and see how they actually play this. Chip makers have been allocating more resources to far more lucrative advanced memory needed in AI data centers, raising the risk that Nintendo may struggle to even secure enough chips to manufacture the console, according to research firm TrendForce, right? And this is another thing where it's like chip makers have an opportunity cost, right? Do they make the chips that Nintendo needs for the Switch 2, or do they focus all their efforts on the chips that make a lot more money, right? And they can sell those to whoever needs them. I mean, there's no shortage of companies that are building AI data centers right now. So even if Nintendo is willing to pay more, it's also going to be up to the chip makers to actually make the chips. This year is pivotal for the new console's long-term growth, as the size of its install base will determine how much attention it attracts from third-party developers and gamers in the years that follow. So here they show a quick snapshot of the Nintendo stock price. This is when the Switch 2 actually came out, and you could see the stock rose and then it eventually fell somewhere around, well, really it started around September, right, with that Nintendo Direct, popped up for Black Friday, and then all those reports came out that actually the Switch 2 had a horrible November, at least in the United States. It did really well in Japan, of course. We'll talk about that later. Now, taking a look at Nintendo's stock price right now over the last 5 days, you can see that it is still down 8.74% as of this time right here, Eastern time. If we take a look at the daily chart, it's down right here. So we did see a little bit of a bump. So stock went up a couple of percent and then immediately lost all of its gains a couple of hours later. Now, who knows how this is going to play out in the long run. If we take a look at the monthly chart and the 6-month chart, you're still down 32.6% in the last 6 months. So if we look at Nintendo's stock price over in Japan, this is actually in Japanese yen here. You can see we're sitting at 10,080 Japanese yen. Over the last month, it's still down 4.86%. Over the last 5 days, we did see a little bit of a bump after these financial results came out, still down 2.8%. Over the course of the actual trading day, it looks like we are up 1.38%. So like a really tiny bump here. But anyway, again, you're going to see a lot of people banging the drum on the 17 million units sold number here, and you're going to wonder why that's not translating to market value. And the reason is because everyone already knew that, right? Everyone already knew that number was given like 3 months ago. Nobody, even myself, everyone knew that. It's almost like the Nintendo fans are just showing up to the party, right? Like you're just getting here. Welcome. Like I know people don't look at this data all the time like we do here on the channel, but yeah, it really did not move the needle, because that was like the bare minimum, right? Like that's what was expected. They better have hit that number. Anyway, the article goes on to say rising memory prices may also hurt software sales, Nintendo's primary profit engine. And I'm going to be real, guys, software sales were not looking great from this financial report either. We're going to take a look at that later in the video. The Switch 2's internal storage is limited to 256 gigabytes of memory, well below that of Sony's PS5 or Microsoft's Xbox. That's as games increasingly require more firepower. Big budget titles such as Final Fantasy VII Remake can consume more than 90 gigabytes, forcing users to purchase micro SD express cards to expand storage. Prices for those cards are also climbing, partly due to AI-driven demand for solid-state drives, which could further discourage game purchases. Nintendo may seek ways to improve hardware profitability while sustaining customer interest through measures such as releasing Switch 2 models in different colors. Still, component prices are expected to persist through at least 2026 and may test the company's ability to absorb them. Let's take a look at Nintendo's revenue miss. Nintendo posted Q3 revenue of 806 billion yen, missing analyst expectations of 847 billion yen, according to CNBC. The company maintained its 19 million unit Switch 2 sales forecast for fiscal 2026 unchanged from November's raised guidance, and frankly, they should probably hit this. I mean, they're at 17.2 right now. We've got Mario Tennis coming out, which frankly I don't think is gonna move that many units. I don't know about you guys, you can let me know in the comments, but I really don't think that's going to be a driver there. The only sort of variable is going to be Pokemon Pokopia, right? Like that game could come out of nowhere and just all the cozy gamers could rise up and all decide that they're going to buy a Switch 2 now. So maybe that's going to move the needle, or maybe they're just going to allocate way more units to the Japan market, because as we're going to see later in this video, Japan did a lot of the heavy lifting. Actually, in holiday season, it actually sold more units in Japan than it did in the Americas, which is insane considering how many more people live in America. Like that should not have happened at all. Like it shouldn't have even been close. But anyway, as it continues to get easier for people in Japan to get the Switch 2, maybe that's what's going to push them over that 19 million unit mark. So again, I really will not be surprised if they hit this number. It's pretty much in the bag as far as I'm concerned. But either way, the article goes on to say Nintendo stock has plunged over 30% since hitting a record high in August. We just talked about that. Investors are watching two critical headwinds: surging memory component prices and questions about the strength of Nintendo's upcoming games lineup. And that is a massive one right there, folks, because frankly we did not really learn anything of importance in this earnings report regarding what's coming next. Now of course obviously Nintendo releases those in the Nintendo Direct presentation, so we're gonna have to wait for that. But yeah, they're still silent about what the big game of 2026 is gonna be. Surely there's gonna be one, because if there's not, that's not gonna look good. Frankly, it's not gonna look good. Let's move on here. Nintendo just posted its fiscal third quarter earnings, and the numbers tell a story of cautious optimism. I think that's a good way to put it, right? Cautious optimism. Things are good right now, right? Like if you just take the headlines and you just take some of the top line numbers, things are good right now. But if you just look out an extra couple of months, it's like I don't know. The Japanese gaming giant maintained its full year sales and profit guidance despite missing revenue expectations by roughly 300 million, betting that Switch 2 momentum will carry through the rest of the fiscal year. But investors aren't convinced. The stock's down more than 30% since its August peak, and concerns mounting over rising memory costs and whether Nintendo's game pipeline can sustain the hype that drove record-breaking Switch 2 launch lines from Tokyo to Manhattan. Nintendo is holding the line. The gaming giant just reported fiscal third quarter earnings that fell short on revenue but beat on profit, all while keeping its full year Switch 2 sales target firmly in place at 19 million units. It's a statement of confidence or stubbornness depending on how you read the market's reaction. The numbers paint a mixed picture. Nintendo brought in 806.3 billion yen in revenue for the quarter ending December 31st, missing LSEG analyst estimates of 847.7 billion yen by nearly 5%. The LSEG estimates unfortunately are paywalled estimates, so you can't just access them, but we know exactly where it came from. Net profit came in at 159.9 billion yen, actually beating expectations of 147.3 billion yen. That profit performance suggests the company's managing costs well, but the revenue miss is what has investors nervous. The bigger question hanging over Kyoto isn't about last quarter's performance, it's about what comes next. And this is the thing that, you know, we've been talking about on the channel for so long, and it's actually exhausting, right? Because again, nuance is impossible when we're in like the gaming niche here, right? Like Nintendo fans are so passionate, and as soon as they see a title and thumbnail that doesn't agree with their preconceived notion, they have a meltdown, right? And whether it's because they're children or because they're like 40 without a job, I don't know, but they can't handle that. You are just not allowed to criticize their favorite company. It's unironically the leave the multi-billion-dollar corporation alone meme. But yeah, the Switch 2 had a great launch, but the truth is that the fastest selling console narrative is like 6 months old at this point, or more than 7 months old at this point. It's a fun copy pasta for like the people that are console warring, but it's not actually what any of the adults are really looking at. They're looking at, okay, can you keep that up, right? Are you going to keep that up or not? The article goes on to say that Nintendo raised its sales forecast, but that was before the full weight of current headwinds became apparent. The company's sticking with that ambitious number even as its stock tells a different story. Two concerns dominate investor thinking right now. First is the memory price situation. The semiconductor industry is experiencing an unprecedented surge in memory chip costs driven by AI demand. The second worry is about content. Hardware sales are only half the equation. Nintendo needs a steady stream of compelling first-party and third-party titles to keep Switch 2 owners engaged and attract new buyers. The company hasn't laid out a detailed roadmap that convinces Wall Street the game's pipeline is robust enough to sustain momentum through the fiscal year ending March 2026 and beyond. That's what oh my god, that's what we've been saying. What games are coming out, brother? Bonanza was the last good Switch 2 exclusive. It was, I'm sorry to say, like we are months since then. What can people play on this thing? We've got 70 Switch 1 remakes and ports and Switch 2 editions where you spend extra money. Like what new things can I play, boys? Come on. What made the original Switch such a phenomenon was the combination of innovative hardware and tentpole franchises like Zelda, Mario, and Animal Crossing hitting at the right moments. The Switch 2 launched with strong initial demand, but maintaining that requires Nintendo to prove it can deliver the software lineup to match. And while not completely telling, it does look like JP Morgan is a little bit worried about Nintendo's hardware performance in 2026, because like a day ago they actually downgraded Best Buy stock. So what actually happened here? Best Buy stock could face renewed pressure after JP Morgan downgraded the retailer from overweight to neutral on Monday, cutting its price target from $99 to $76. The bank's concerns center on difficult comparisons ahead for the electronics giant. JP Morgan analyst has two key points. First, the company is facing tough year-over-year comparisons following the successful launch of the Nintendo Switch 2 in June of 2025. The translation here is they don't think we're going to see that success again in 2026, right? They look at that and they say, okay, lots of demand was pulled forward, lots of people bought the Switch 2 in 2025, and they are not confident that that's going to continue at the same pace in 2026, right? And of course a console launch has a huge amount of hype, right? So of course that's when a lot of people are going to buy it if it's available, like the Switch 2 was. But this is suggesting a year-over-year sales decline, or maybe just flatlining. And then secondly, Best Buy got a boost from the Windows 10 end of support in October, and that won't recur. Okay, so that is partially related to Microsoft. And frankly, the overall narrative here is consumer electronics are gonna struggle in 2026, right? So this headline focused on Nintendo, and that is obviously related here. It's more of a broad trend though. It's not just Nintendo that's affecting this, but I did think that it was worth noting that they just don't think that Best Buy is going to see as much demand for the Switch 2 in 2026 as they did in 2025. The only thing that would change that would be maybe a price drop or massive games coming to the Switch 2, so we'll have to wait and see. Okay, now let's talk about software sales. Okay, what we've got here is a bunch of unit sale numbers for really only 3 games. I mean, these are the only 3 games that Nintendo has worth talking about from this last year. Not that they're not great games. I mean, besides Legends EA, of course, this was garbage, but they are reporting, of course, sell-in numbers. So these are the numbers of units that they actually shipped. So you can see that the Switch 2 edition of Legends EA definitely underperformed globally than the Switch 1 edition. But I got really curious here, okay? Because as you can see here, the Switch software sales fell 12.1%. Now, that is no surprise. They just released the Switch 2. A lot of those big Nintendo fans are going to buy the Switch 2 and then subsequently buy the Switch 2 edition of software, right? Like in the case of Legends EA. So it's obviously no surprise that there would be a slowdown of Switch 1 software sales in the last quarter. But I was curious about just like the software units sold trajectory for Nintendo over the last couple of years. So what I did is I literally just used Nintendo's own quarterly results. I just went back through Nintendo's official financial results, and if you scroll down, you'll see the exact same thing that we've been looking at for this current quarter, or this most recent quarter I should say, and you'll see that they do report the software units sold for all these previous years. And so I just did that for the last few years and we put it into a chart. Okay, now of course this most recent 9-month period is the first time that the Switch 2 has units sold, so we have to factor those in. So if you add them together, we do see an 18.45% bump in total software units sold from this reporting period compared to last year's same reporting period of 123.98 million units. But we still fall short of 2023 and 2022 and 2021 and 2020. It's only when we go back to 2019 that we actually see another similar year to 2024. I know it says fiscal year 25, but that's because the way that Nintendo reports this, they report this at the beginning of 2025, so it's actually 2024. I know it's confusing. Either way, in a launch year of the most hyped console that Nintendo has ever released, to still have lower software unit sales than that of 2023 or 2022 is kind of surprising. I mean, all these people are buying the new console and all of it's bundled with Mario Kart World, and all this talk about how great Legends EA is selling, and Donkey Kong Bonanza is like the second coming of Mario Odyssey, and even people are pointing at like Kirby Air Riders in Japan doing really, really well, which that's the only place that it did really well. But you know, all of that to say, like, I don't know, I guess this number's fine, right? I guess, but like, I mean, let's just do super basic math here, right? Like, these are the numbers that Nintendo's reporting, so let's just take those at face value. 37.93 divided by 17.37. So your average Switch 2 owner has 2 games. Okay, some people have 3, some people have less. So really, people are buying the Switch 2. It comes with Mario Kart, by the way. Okay, like, don't be fooled, everyone bought the Mario Kart World bundle, so that's their first game. Okay, so everyone who bought the Switch 2 bought what, Donkey Kong Bonanza or Legend ZA, and then only a tiny handful of people bought anything other than that. The time frame that this report is covering is 7 months. So in 7 months, you released a new console and your average player only bought 1 extra game besides the Mario Kart World that it came bundled with. And by the way, I'm still super confused about this, right? Like, they use this as a talking point, saying that the growth in sales of Switch 2 hardware was driven by the Mario Kart World bundle and the Pokemon Legends EA bundle, but both of these bundles are gone now and they didn't replace it with anything. So I don't like, why would they discontinue the, like, they're pointing at these things, they're like, look how successful these were. No, we don't sell them anymore. Yeah, we could sell it, we don't sell them anymore though. We chose not to. Like, I'm just I don't know, maybe I'm an idiot, but like, I don't understand the business decision there. Like, if you're gonna discontinue the Mario Kart World bundle, wouldn't you think that they would like have another thing to replace it with? Like, oh, we're discontinuing it, but don't worry because the next 3D Mario is coming out and that's gonna be the new bundle. It's like, oh yeah, like, I don't know, maybe that's gonna happen, right? And this is all speculation, but just at this point in time, there's just no reason for them to have done this. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Now, the other chart that I thought was super interesting, right, which by the way, the Nintendo Switch has reached the highest sales volume of any Nintendo hardware ever, so congratulations to the Nintendo Switch. It is officially surpassed like the DS and all the other things. Like, it is that dude. Okay, the Switch 1 is that dude. Congratulations. But the more important part here is off on the right, annual playing users. And the reason that this chart is so interesting is because this might be the last time we ever see this chart. Now, they've actually been sharing this data all the way since 2017. Okay, this has consistently been a part of their investor relation reports. Okay, but they are not under any obligation to keep sharing this data with us as far as I'm concerned. I don't think they're legally required to do that. You guys can let me know if I'm wrong in the comments, but you can see every single year their player base is growing, right? And it's pretty monumental. And then what you'll notice for January through December of 2025, okay, so the entire year of 2025, you'll notice that they made the number in bold and really big, so that way the number is actually higher than the previous one, right? Like, the 129 is vertically placed above the 130 on the chart, but it's actually a lower number. I don't know if you guys know this, but 129 is less than 130, right? So this is, and like, look, this is just what this is what Nintendo reported, not me. I didn't make this up. They're telling us straight from them. This is from their mouth. This is the first year that we see a dip in annual playing users. Now, make no mistake, this is not a collapse. This is a very marginal, less than 1% drop in annual playing users, but it's important because it's the first time we've ever seen this. We've literally never seen Nintendo's annual playing user base decline or dip, or even if you don't want to call it that, we have to at least call it stagnant since 2023. It has not grown meaningfully since 2023. Nintendo has hit the wall, folks, and this is the first time that we're seeing an actual dip here in the year they released the Switch 2. What does this mean? Okay, so they released a new console and their annual player base went down by 1 million. Not that big of a deal, right? It's only 1 million out of 130. But when you think about, like, okay, are they getting new people into the ecosystem with the Switch 2, or are all the Switch 2 buyers just Switch 1 buyers, right? Well, the answer is overwhelmingly it's just people upgrading, right? Like, that's how you get to the point where you sell a lot of units and your player base shrinks by 1%, right? Like, that's how the math works there. Okay, so this is, again, this is not a collapse, this is nothing crazy, but it is worth pointing out because this is the turning point. Like, it's like when you're riding a roller coaster, things go up and then they get the turning point, and then what happens after that? Some roller coasters have another hill, maybe, I don't know. Maybe the Switch 2 in 2026 is going to pop off. Maybe they have a secret lineup of the best games they've ever released and they're coming soon, we just don't know about them. Maybe that's the case, and I'm not exaggerating here. Like, maybe they actually have some trick up their sleeve, they're keeping their secrets close to their chest, and we're gonna see this number pop. It's gonna be 135 next time this report comes around. Who knows, right? But I did want to point out that this is the first time Nintendo's annual playing users has declined. That's a fact. They said it, not me. And in a world where we're talking about trajectory, right, which again, the Nintendo fans can't get, they can't comprehend that, right? They don't know that that's what we're talking about here. They just see 17 million, 17 million. They just copy paste the headlines. But in a world of analyzing trajectory rather than headlines, we actually see stagnant player growth, which is kind of crazy. And by the way, on the topic of unit sales here, I thought this was super interesting. The dedicated video game unit sales as of December 31st 2025 actually break down Switch 2 unit sales by region. And as you can see right here in red, we have the Switch 2 hardware sales in Japan. So if we look at all four of these categories, Japan actually made up the largest chunk of unit sales. And this is where I think the Nintendo fanboy derangement syndrome comes from. Okay, because when I make videos talking about like, oh yeah, like the Switch 2 it actually didn't have a great holiday season in the United States, everyone's like, what do you mean the Switch 2 had a great holiday season? Then they point to this and it's like, this chart shows October, okay, which is not holiday season. That's when Pokemon came out. So it's not just November, December. And also it shows all of the regions, right? And this is what I mean, where you can't have a nuanced discussion about Nintendo, because it's like I say one thing and then they hear something else and then go down a different, and there's just no conversation being had there, right? Like they're straw manning and it's like, well, why are we wasting time? Like, why do you even watch my videos if you're not actually listening to what I'm saying, right? Like you're just getting mad. It's only bad for you. It only hurts you. I don't get it. But anyway, I thought it was interesting that, maybe you guys don't, but I thought it was interesting that Japan sold more units of the Switch 2 than any other region in the world for the final quarter of 2025, right? By the way, Japan has a population of 123 million, and the fact that Japan actually outsold the Americas is actually insane. Even if you want to pretend that North America is only the United States, it's still 342 million. Okay, so when we think about like, okay, why would so many people in Japan, which is a much smaller population, be buying the Switch 2 at a rate that outpaces even the United States and the Americas in total? And the reason is because the console is significantly cheaper in Japan. I don't need to go over this because everybody already knows this. A quick Google search gives you the answer. Okay, it's 50,000 yen, which is like $340 right now, compared to the $450 or $500 that they're selling it for in the United States or other countries. I know in other countries it's even more expensive when you factor in conversions and stuff. So yeah, I mean, big surprise, the country where it's cheaper is where they sell more units. That's, I mean, frankly unsurprising to virtually everybody, but the fact that it outsold the Americas is honestly, that is surprising, just considering like how many more people there are in the Americas. There's a big discrepancy when it comes to demand between these two countries, right? Now the other thing too, and this is important to touch on here, is that Japan did have supply issues when they launched the Switch 2, right? So when you look at these other quarters here, you're going to see Japan is actually much lower than the Americas in both of these quarters, and that's for two reasons. One, demand is really high and supply was really low, and so they would go to the store and they can't buy one now. So it's possible that for this holiday season, Nintendo finally opened the floodgates and they were like, okay, here you go, Japan, you guys can buy as many Switch 2s as you want, or as many as we can manufacture, or whatever the case might be. But that could play a huge role here. I just thought it was really interesting to point out that they actually outsold the Americas here. I wonder if they have anything up their sleeve to get demand up in the Americas for 2026, because let's face it, this upcoming Switch 2 title release schedule is like not that interesting in my opinion, right? We've got Animal Crossing, that's already out. We've got Mario Tennis, okay, Pokemon Pokopia, sure, they're re-releasing Mario Wonder with a little add-on here. We've got Yoshi in spring, Fire Emblem, and Splatoon Raiders. Splatoon is actually a pretty big franchise. We don't know if it's coming this year. It could come in 2027. They probably are trying to rush it for this year, honestly, but we'll have to wait and see. And on the topic of a game that will move units in North America, I do think we have to talk about what we have already, right? And I've gone on record and said, look, Mario Kart World, it's a fun Mario Kart game. I played it. I think it's great. Okay, I think Mario Kart 8 is probably a little bit better, but I really don't hate Mario Kart World. I think it's totally fine. I think if you're like heavy into the online scene, maybe you're frustrated with it, that it is what it is, but it's a fine Mario Kart game. Donkey Kong Bonanza, solid game. It's a solid game. It is what it is. I'd say it's probably like an 8 out of 10, maybe an 8.5. Totally reasonable game. It didn't hold me till the very end. I just couldn't care to do more of the same, but it was fine. And then we look at some of the other games, right? We look at Legends EA Switch 2 Edition. This definitely moved units of the Switch 2, there's no doubt about it. But if we look here, Legends EA sold 8.41 million units on Switch 1 and 3.89 million units on Switch 2, which is a grand total of 12.3 million, which means Legends EA has still sold worse than Legends Arceus, and it's no surprise why. I mean, the game is worse than Legends Arceus. It's just look at it, right? Like, I mean, doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. Then we look at Kirby Air Riders with 1.76 million units sold, but when we look at how that number number is broken down here, right? 900,000 of them are in Japan alone and 860,000 are everywhere else. So the Americas, Europe, and every other region outside of Japan, all of that combined doesn't match the sales numbers for Kirby Air Riders in Japan alone. So it's like, okay, Kirby Air Riders, clearly that wasn't the game that was gonna like move units in the United States. And then you think, okay, well, where's Metroid Prime? Geez, they don't even mention Metroid Prime. We look here, they don't even tell us like the Metroid Prime Switch 2 units aren't even listed here. That must be embarrassing. It's not even under Switch 1 either. They just don't talk about it. They're just pretending, oh, here it is. They just have the launch date. They're just like, yeah, that game happened. It definitely came out, but they don't tell us anything. Look, I'm just gonna control F. They only mentioned Metroid Prime 4 3 times in this entire document, and none of it references sales numbers. Okay, this is the only time we see Samus in this entire presentation. They're just trying to move on. They're just trying to pretend like that didn't happen. Let's just don't talk about Metroid. It sold 9 units. All right, just so it's like, okay, Kirby Air Riders and Metroid Prime 4 really kind of flopped bigger than I thought they would. I mean, I guess I didn't really have any expectations for Kirby Air Riders because I knew outside of Japan that was like a mega niche thing. So what's the game that's going to move Switch 2 units in 2026? Okay, we went over this already. Let's look. They show some third-party stuff here. Okay, so we've got Dragon Quest, Yakuza, Reanimal, Resident Evil, maybe, right? Maybe Resident Evil. You got Monster Hunter Collection. Elliot, maybe sometime in 2026. Professor Layton, cool, right? I know there's people that are excited about the Switch 2 edition, but again, that's a Switch 2. Oh, it's a Switch 2 edition. I'm so sick of the Switch 2 edition thing is not working. Can we just say it? It's not working. Okay, it worked for the Switch with the Wii U because nobody bought a Wii U. Okay, so then when you release the Wii U games on Switch and everyone actually has a Switch, it's actually going to work. But when you do this and you just keep re-releasing Switch games for Switch 2, it's like we already have those games. Everyone already bought them. It's right there. Okay, everyone already bought the Switch games. Everyone already has a Switch. Why would I upgrade? It's not like we're not talking about like some insanely graphically impressive, like this is Professor Layton, boys. Anyway, I digress. Then we see the Mario Bros 40th anniversary initiative, and like, look, I'm just gonna say it, there's just not a super cool thing that happened for Mario's 40th anniversary. Now the movie is different. That's gonna be a big deal. It's gonna be a box office success. It's gonna be just as successful as the first one, if not more successful. Okay, that's going to drive units of Switch 2 sales. It's probably going to drive units of this Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 bundle. I get it. Okay, the movie is the 40th anniversary initiative, but there's not like a Switch 2 exclusive initiative, right? Like, what is it? Yoshi in the Mysterious Book is the Switch 2 exclusive for Mario's 40th anniversary. There's no way, except there is a way, because they've already announced that Mario Wonder with Bella Bell Park is what's coming out around the time of the Mario movie. So it's like, unless they've got some 500 IQ Giga Chad play to just drop Odyssey 2 out of nowhere, it's a surprise drop, it's not been leaked. I don't know. I think the 40th initiative, this was a big opportunity to send Switch 2 units flying off the shelves, and it will give it a bump. The movie will give it a bump, right, for sure, but like, I don't know, man, I don't know. So we come back to this chart and we're like, man, Japan is really doing a lot of heavy lifting for that last quarter, and we're thinking like, okay, well, what's the North American title that's going to move units? And it's just like, literally no one has an answer to that question still, and we've been asking that question since, like, I don't know, Legends EA came out like October. Anyway, we're off in the weeds at this point, guys, but I'm curious to know what you think about everything that we talked about in this video. Are you surprised that player growth has stalled, hit the wall, and people are curious if it's going to turn around in 2026? Are you surprised that they missed analyst targets when it comes to profit and revenue for holidays? Are you surprised that the stock price hasn't shot up after these results? Because after all the headlines are good, right? Oh my God, things are so great for Nintendo. They hit the number that everyone knew they would hit. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and if you guys made it to the end of the video, consider dropping a thumbs up on it. It really helps out the channel a ton. And you guys might think you're subscribed because you've seen a ton of my videos, but you're actually not. Double check down below.